We come to the hour of evening meditation, this 25th day of July, 1954, in the chapel on Sunrise Ranch. We have recently been considering together the principles of reciprocity. One of the factors that we have also considered in recent times is the reality of leadership. We are here on Sunrise Ranch to develop leadership, that we may move forward effectively in letting the will of God be done in earth as it is in heaven. But when we say that we are here to develop leadership, we mean centered leadership, leadership that abides in right polarity. In the past few hours we have spent together in meditation, we have given consideration to the principles of cause and effect. We have recognized that true cause, basic cause, is of God. We have recognized that cause is invisible, and that anyone who imagines that he or she can detect with physical vision the cause of anything is only deluding himself. There is no such thing as visible cause. Anything that is visible to the eye is an effect, not a cause. We have come to realize that creation, the physical realm of creation which we perceive with vision, is the effect of action by the invisible cause, which we call the Creator. We recognize that there is the realm of being, which is and does not need to become, and there is that realm of creation, which is in the process of becoming. Human beings make many mistakes in relationship to comprehension. But one of these mistakes has to do with the fact that human beings look at the visible realm of effect and imagine that this is something that is, in the sense of being finished or complete, in the sense of giving it the status of being which must be reserved for God. On the other hand, in this world we recognize that there is one thing certain, and that is change. Some human beings have learned to work with change. Most human beings work against change, rebelling at every real change that takes place in life. Of course, human beings imagine that change means tragedy, which it does not necessarily. But human beings are afraid of change. They resist it and fight against it in innumerable ways. And, as a consequence, that which is certain is used as if it were an enemy. But change is certain only in the realm of effect. If change is certain, then that provides us with absolute proof, if proof we need, that this is, in the visible realm, a realm of effect and not of cause. As soon as we begin to realize these things, we can begin to take a sane and sensible attitude toward the process of living. But we cannot have true orientation. We cannot understand the processes going on around us, nor can we comprehend the means by which we may function effectively with change in order to experience success in life without first becoming oriented on the basis of these factors relating to being or creator or cause, and as they relate to effect or creation. We recognize that whenever there is any given cause, effect does not stop at that point. If there is one effect, there will be another effect. Effect is always on a chain reaction basis. Cause produces effect, but effect is always on a chain reaction basis. If there is one effect, there is another. Just as dropping a pebble into the pond produces a series of waves, there are always a series of effects in relationship to any cause. Now, if you were to trace from the realm of invisible cause the cycles of effect by which you finally say you hear my voice, you understand the words that are spoken. Now that cause is completely invisible. It's in the realm of mind that the causation factor begins to come into the realm of consciousness. But how would you like to be required in this moment to trace all of the effect patterns which appear even after the chain reaction has reached the point of mind, the consciousness, the determination to say such and such a word? How would you like to trace the effect pattern through the realm of the nervous system, the control of the muscles that allow the sounds to be made, the control of the voice box which allows the sounds to be shaped and controlled, the expression into sound, the reaction through the atmosphere to your ear, transposed from the sound vibratory factors of the eardrum into your brain so that you hear the word which I speak. Now that just gives a little sample, but take it where you will. You never see cause, and with respect to cause, there is never just a single action. If there is an action, there are other actions following after. Even if I work from cause and you were to unwisely, falsely assume that the cause of movement here is the muscle in my arm. The muscle in my arm is the instrument of cause, actually. But if I move my hand so, is that just an action that has no other effect at all? What about the air, just for one point? What about the changes in tissue? What about the necessity of having to take my arm back again? And on and on. In any level that you wish, examine it. Cause is never visible, and in relationship to effect, there is never just one effect as the result of the action of cause. It works through a whole series of effects. Just as the movement of my hand is more than just a gesture, it moves the air, and many other things must take place in the effect pattern. Most of this that results in the effect pattern of cause is likewise invisible. You cannot hear my voice. You may see my lips move. You cannot see my voice, is what I meant to say. You can hear my voice, but you cannot see my voice. You may see my lips move, but the sound is invisible. The whole working of the process by which the sound is made is invisible, with the exception of a little movement of the lips, which you can perceive. And then the function within yourself by which you hear the word that is spoken is likewise invisible. The movement of the air as the result of the movement of my hand is invisible. Most of the effects which appear in relationship to any given cause are invisible, and consequently by most human beings are not recognized or calculated in relationship to the field of action. And unless you know the cycles of effect, unless you understand how those cycles of effect correlate with other cycles of effect that are in operation at the moment, individually, collectively, nationally, from a world standpoint, in relationship to the cycles that are at work in heaven and in the cosmos, how can your mind determine the right pattern of action from the standpoint of cause? Are you that brilliant? Human beings over and over again devote themselves to some action which they conceive to be good, and they think they are functioning from the standpoint of cause. And in a sense, perhaps we may say they are. Either primary cause or secondary cause. But because they have this action, they speak these words, they have that attitude, in the expression of cause from the invisible realm, primary or secondary, they have no comprehension of the full import of the effect pattern. They think they're going to produce thus and so by such and such a course of action, but when they arrive at that point, they find it is not what they had anticipated. What is one of the most common expressions in the world today among human beings? Anticipation of a pleasure or an outworking or a fulfillment is always better than the fulfillment, the realization, the experience. Look about you in the world. Have you ever had that happen to you? That you anticipated something, you had your mind set on it, you followed a course of action to reach that point, You thought you reached the point where you could experience the fulfillment, and it went empty on you. You hadn't understood the effect patterns of your action, and probably you imagined that you were at the point of fulfillment when you actually weren't. You misjudged all the way around, and consequently you were disappointed. And being disappointed, you felt you had some kind of bad luck. Or someone else was to blame. If so-and-so over here had just done so-and-so, then I would have had the fulfillment. Someone spoiled it. Very few people have the courage, the honesty, and the integrity essential to facing the fact that when it's spoiled, they themselves had the greater share of responsibility in the spoiling. Always human beings are ready to blame someone else. Now, if we begin to realize these things, to see them, see that they are so, not just because I say so, but because the evidence all the way through creation, everywhere you turn, is abundant, we begin to see the fact that if we are going to experience any fulfillment in life, we had better stop and consider the laws and the principles involved and learn how to live, so that we do not inadvertently, ignorantly, constantly defeat ourselves. We work so hard to accomplish something really worthwhile, and when it comes out at the end, it's such a little driblet of what we think ought to have been. Why? Because God made it so? No. Because human beings have ignored the basic laws of being. A few moments ago I mentioned leadership. There can be no true expression of leadership until these things are comprehended. Otherwise it will be a matter of the blind leading the blind, and they both shall fall in the ditch. In the realm of leadership, there are many times responsibilities that are not altogether pleasant. Human beings tend to live in a dream world. They tend to imagine things that are not so. And then when the fulfillment of their imaginations does not appear as anticipated, they feel cheated, futile. There are blind spots where human beings fail over and over again to perceive something that should be easily perceived. From the standpoint of leadership, what should one do? Should one ignore these factors and let those who are dreaming dream on? Let those who are stumbling stumble on? Just take the attitude, well, it's none of my business. Someday they'll wake up. Or should one who is a leader undertake to open up the pattern so that something not seen may be seen, something not understood may be comprehended? It comes down to a matter of direction and of setting the factors out where they may be seen to the end that human beings may be disillusioned with respect to their own false fancies. Many human beings go about expecting to be disillusioned with respect to everything that they think would be good. Well, I'll go, but I probably won't have a very good time. I'll do this, but it probably won't be very nice. They let themselves be persuaded along a certain path, but they expect in advance to be disillusioned with respect to every lovely thing, every beautiful thing, so that they won't be hurt too much, of course. They do that to protect themselves, a defense mechanism, so that when they are disillusioned, why, they can look bored and say, well, I didn't expect it to amount to anything anyway. I wonder if the responsibilities of leadership rested upon you as they rest upon me, what you would do in this hour. What would you say? What action would you take with respect to these things? Would you say within yourself, now these good folks are also good, and they're trying, they're working hard, they think they're doing their level best, so I'd better just give them a little pat on the back, say something that they'd like to hear, a little encouragement, something interesting and entertaining, and let them go their way. Or would you say to yourself, over a period of time, I have been working to achieve a certain result. We have made some progress, and there has been some wonderful evidence of cooperation, devotion, all the rest. But there are still factors here which have not been properly seen, recognized, and realized, and as a consequence, much of the effort we put forth is wasted. We are not achieving as rapidly as we could achieve with the same amount of energy expenditure. If we understood more, if we realized what we were doing to defeat ourselves, we wouldn't have to work so hard to do even more. And so, under the responsibility of leadership, I shall undertake to say something, to clear some patterns, open the vision, even though I run a chance, take a chance, on someone taking offense, someone deciding that it's cause to be hurt, someone deciding that it's cause to throw up one's hands and quit, someone deciding that I do not understand. Now, there are some who have quite a good opinion of their own understanding, quite satisfied with the degree of comprehension already enjoyed, quite well self-satisfied with respect to what has been accomplished in their own lives. They think they're going somewhere, doing something worthwhile. So, we could adopt the policy, if ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. But is that the kind of leadership you want from me? Or would you rather, even at the possible expense, shall we say, of a little hurt, a little disillusionment, would you say, if there is a failure to see, a failure to comprehend, let us see, let us have the factors brought out so that we may face them as men and women. Are we afraid to see? If we are, then perhaps this is not the time nor the hour. If we are not afraid to see, then this is the time and the hour. and perfect love casts out all fear. And we have begun to realize from the standpoint of our consideration of cause and effect that anything that we do from the standpoint of secondary cause is going to come to naught sooner or later in anything. You remember last evening I used the illustration of my upright forearm representing true cause. The human beings stealing not all but part of the cause current to use it for their own purposes, thereby establishing a secondary cause. And so we illustrate that with a line drawn out from original cause, something that the human being establishes and maintains by a constant process of stealing that which belongs to God, so that he may govern cause enough to live his life the way he thinks he wants to live it, because he does not trust true cause. But if we do trust true cause, original cause, then we know that whatever we might do on this tangent pattern, however successfully we might establish a secondary cause, the first result will be conflict between us and God, and the other result coming out of that will be a life of conflict, of turmoil, of trouble, of difficulty, of discord. And what we think to achieve by that method will never live up to what we expected of it. There is also the saying that hope springs eternal in the human breast, so each rising generation assumes that it is a little brighter, a little smarter than the old fogies who have gone before, and they're going to do a little better job of stealing the life force, a little better job of controlling it and directing it to achieve what they think they want to do. But in season they become the old fogies, and another rising generation assumes anew that it's going to do great things. It's going to get its own way. It's going to do what it wants to do. Okay. Anyone who wants to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it, it's his business. It's his life. He can throw it away if he pleases. For those of us who are interested in living life successfully, knowing some fulfillment, achieving something worthwhile, that is not enough. We've come to realize that there must be some relinquishing of pet desires, pet ideas, pet concepts. There must be a change from identification with secondary cause to identification of self with primary cause. Actually, the only thing we have to relinquish in this process is the right of free choice. Human beings out here in the world place great store in the right of free choice. Freedom. Freedom is a wonderful thing, and we are all for it. But what is freedom? Freedom to exercise the right of free choice the way we want to. That is what most people think. But as long as we do that, we are going to have conditions such as they are in the world. And our great nation is going to become weaker and weaker as long as that process is maintained. Because human beings are not wise enough, regardless of their opinions of themselves, to determine how cause shall best be controlled, for what purposes it shall act. Now I should like to draw you a little diagram, something which I trust will be helpful in clarifying this pattern. We will draw a line here, presumably more or less straight up and down. which is supposed to signify cause, or, we can put it another way, God. For God is cause, and cause is God. And if you have a secondary cause pattern developed in your own nature, then you have a secondary God and you're an idolater, whether you like to face the fact or not. You are not worshiping the one God, regardless of your opinion. Now, only as the current of cause which we call Spirit, Holy Spirit, or Christ, whatever term is most pleasing to you, issues forth from God, down from God out of heaven. The Spirit of cause is moving, acting. That Spirit is everywhere present all the time, but can move on the basis of control for a specific purpose only when there is an instrument of action, a means of acting. I might conceivably, intellectually know that some weeds ought to be pulled over here in the field, as I do. There's some weeds over there that should certainly be pulled, cut, or something before they go to seed. In any case, if I try to send out my spirit to do that, just sitting and twiddling my thumbs, so to speak, what will happen? Will it hurt the weeds any? Probably not. But if my spirit has channels of action, and either someone who is working with me or I myself get out a tractor and attach the sickle bar and go over there and cut the weeds down, as should be done, then the current of my spirit in relationship to this has found a channel of action, and something was done. Action resulted. Action in relationship to physical things. The action of God in the primary or complete sense in relationship to the working of His Spirit can manifest in relationship to this world, this creation, only through man. We noted this morning that God did not provide any alternative. He did not provide for any substitute for man. He said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion." And He did so. Male and female created He them. So, something coming down from heaven, the invisible realm, where we find God or cause, and wherever cause or God is, there heaven is, if you have the ability to perceive the atmosphere of it. Wherever God is, there heaven is. Up, down, in between. Wherever God is, there heaven is. Because the presence of God, the atmosphere of God, is what produces heaven. And so heaven is anywhere where God is, if there is the ability to perceive the presence of God, to recognize the evidence of His presence, and to realize the atmosphere of His presence. And any place where God is not, or where there isn't any, is there? No. So we'll have to change that. Any place where human beings think God is not, and do not have the ability to comprehend the presence of God, they see all things on the basis of the absence of God, and so to them, there is what? There is the absence of heaven, which is hell. The absence of light we call darkness, The absence of life we call death. The absence of heaven we call hell. And wherever we're not aware of the presence of heaven, or of God, or of cause, or the spirit of cause, there, in that moment and in that place, no matter where it is, there is hell, turmoil, conflict, difficulty, misery, suffering, all kinds of ill things. So coming down from God out of heaven, there is a current of cause, which in the Old Testament period was called Shekinah, in the New Testament period was called Christ. And because the pure expression of that current of cause from God was made manifest through Jesus, he was called Jesus the Christ. But those who call him Christ are getting off on a tangent. It is the Christ Spirit revealed through the body of the man Jesus and the living of his life that counts. Jesus, yes, without that body, what he did couldn't have been done. But it was the current of cause working through him, revealing deity, which established him in relationship to the pattern of being. And his influence comes down to us in this day, inspiring us to go and do likewise, to follow him. So, we must learn how to let the current of cause come down from God out of heaven into the earth on a basis that lets the will of the Father, or the will of cause itself, to be done in earth as it is in heaven. Because human beings say, I will accept the current of cause from God, but I must determine how it shall be used. And then they try with their human wills and determinations and desires to put cause to work. So in the realm of self-active mind, a false control pattern begins to develop. And children are taught from the time they toddle at their mother's knees how to develop this self-active pattern of mind. Our whole educational system is designed to further it so that we can all be good thieves, stealing successfully from God in order to receive this life current from God, bring it out here away from the realm where the cause from whence the current comes could control its uses, and we establish it in a little pattern of our own, and we're going to live our own lives in our own ways, according to our own desires, and no one does. I do not care how wealthy or how poor, what state, what education, what anything else. I have contacted tens of thousands of human beings in my ministry over the past more than 20 years, and I have yet to find a single individual, rich or poor, in any position, at any level of society, who is living his life the way he wanted to, no matter how hard he tried. Not one, and you can't find one. If you say you know one, either you don't know or you have become subject to a lie which someone else expressed. You believe something that isn't true. Of course, some people say it, but merely because they say it doesn't mean anything. If you had the opportunity, as I have done, to look into the hearts of these people and see their troubles, see their fears, and know their difficulties, you wouldn't imagine that they're living their lives the way they want to. They try to kid themselves and delude themselves into believing it, but they don't believe it. Not really. They may lie about it if you ask them, but it isn't so. So the stealing begins. And the human being begins to receive over here. He begins to control on the basis of his will, his determination, his desire. And he's going to build up something. And then he finds that after all it does produce emptiness. That it isn't all it's cracked up to be. That there must be something more. He wants to find it. He wants to find illumination, mastership, something better. And so he begins to seek. And if he keeps on seeking, truly he will begin to find. But, and here is an interesting but, most of those who begin to seek, the moment they begin to hear anything about cause or God or the nature of God, they imagine that this secondary pattern of cause which they have established in themselves is God. They say, this is my Lord. And so no matter what I say or anyone else says about cause, God, the laws of being, they translate it all into their own pattern in relationship to secondary cause. And if I remonstrate and say, now you're really being self-active, and say, oh no, I'm just being true to my Lord. There are how many people, some of you right here in this room, and others who are not here, who have imagined at various times that I was trying to get them to be untrue to their Lord. They were absolutely convinced this is what I am. They were identified here. Everything that I said was translated here. Every truth presented was not seen in relationship to primary cause, but to secondary cause. And because their identification was here, they felt that anything that reflected on that was a reflection on their own God being. They were going to be true to this, even if they had to defy me in some fashion. And so their minds go to work to twist and turn everything into this pattern. And right here on Sunrise Ranch, what do you suppose the case is? Do you know that never since we began this project have I, in an actual sense, been the leader here? Oh, I know I've managed to get over a few ideas. A few things have been done more or less the way I would like to have them done. And there's a certain amount of influence. But in actual fact, I am not as yet accepted as the leader by the people who live on Sunrise Ranch. Some of you frown a little bit. Perhaps you'd better frown a little bit. Because do you know that most of you who think you are so good, and you are, oh, you're among the best people on earth. You are really very good. I have recognized that, and it's made my job much more pleasant than it has been bad. But you are bound and determined to maintain secondary cause regardless of what I say, what I do, how I invite you to respond to God and let His will be done in earth as it is in heaven. There are certain ones who have emerged as the primary leaders in relationship to this vibratory factor. I do my best to keep away from too much conflict between these two patterns. But conflict there is, in spite of anything that I can do, any invitation that I may give, to come on over. Let your identification come here. Trust, yield, and see what God's will could do if we gave it a chance just once. And the current of feeling goes through. I know Uranda doesn't mean me. If the person over there would just listen to this service, it would certainly do him some good. It surely would. That person over there needs the shade. If he would just listen. And the one who says it, what of him? Generally speaking, he's one of the leaders over here. Do you know that right here in this room there is a man with his wife who has become the primary leader in relationship to maintaining this vibratory factor, and he has a lot of support from the people in this room. In relationship to the feminine aspect of it, there's one of the ladies sitting here in this room who stands head and shoulders above all the rest as the leader of the female vibratory pattern, dedicated to maintaining that secondary cause pattern. Right here, within the sound of my voice. And there are others who give them special support. One or two very good first lieutenants. And what happens? If they can possibly do it, oh, they are very good. They understand. They know really more than I do. And if someone new comes here and they get a chance at them, you know that my job will be made much more difficult. We are right here on Sunrise Ranch as yet a house divided against itself. And the master said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. But we are still, and in spite of anything and everything I've been able to do, say, or live before you, it's still that way. Some of you have been letting this begin to shrivel and cease. Oh, isn't this beautiful over here? Some of you are really doing a job toward letting that shrivel and wither and pass away. Some of you, in spite of the leadership which is doing its level best, unwittingly now, oh, I know, when these people find out who they are, they're going to be shocked, and probably they'll think that I don't understand. They're among our best workers. They're among our most dependable, good people. They're wonderful. But they are leaders in this, regardless. And they always apply everything I say to someone else. They don't need it. And you can trust them not to do anything or say anything to violate what they conceive to be their own Lord within. And they don't know the rest. Actually, they're completely dedicated to maintaining that secondary cause pattern, and it makes it difficult here and other places for me to get my job done. It makes it difficult for all the rest of us. And those who haven't yet reached the point of making a choice between these two, they're confused by it. They don't quite understand. They feel a pull this way, and it's more or less natural to some of their own instincts, and they feel a pull that way, and they kind of wander back and forth between, not quite sure where they belong or what they ought to do. And that's the problem on Sunrise Ranch. There are fringe factors. There are degrees of devotion to this secondary cause. And those who are leaders in this are really good. Very good. Everything that I have said about God, they have translated in their own minds, worked it in over here somehow, in order to be able to see, comprehend, or know God, and all they know is the secondary cause. But to them, it is real. And I have meditated many times, what could I do? What could I say to get them to stop doing this contemptible thing? So that they would begin to realize I am not talking about what they think I am talking about. so that they will stop mistranslating everything I say and stop being in opposition. He that is not with me is against me, the Master said, and it's true, yes. Now, are we going to let that condition continue forever? From the standpoint of my responsibility of leadership, can I just say, well, I'll let it alone, we'll see what happens, or must I take some steps to bring it to point? To let everyone have an opportunity to see what is taking place. See how human beings have disregarded my admonitions over and over again. And we have certain difficulties. I modify them all that I can. But we still have those difficulties. We're a house divided against itself. And there's confusion as to which is good and which isn't. And the ones I'm talking about are so convinced that this is good that they think it really is. They're, as far as they know, utterly sincere in belief. I've done my best to persuade them in various ways, but they do not know God. It is an idol which they themselves have built, and they've done a remarkably good job. And many good people come here and think they are just utterly wonderful. They see all their goodness and all the lovely things they do, and so on. And they too are confused. They can't see the difference between the imitation and the genuine article. Some of the rest of you in the room are still confused on that point. Trying to do with the imitation, and why do we not have more power on Sunrise Ranch? Why do we not move faster? Why do we have some of the difficulties we do? We're a house divided against itself. I've extended the invitation over and over again to come out of her, my people. What is this? Babylon. Come out of her, my people, lest ye be not partakers of her sin. And just as it is in the world, so is it here. That some of our best people, some of the most good among us, have been, with uttermost devotion, maintaining leadership here. In opposition to me, really. Of course, usually you don't think of it that way, but that's what it is. It's an insidious thing. And I've seen so many people hurt by it. Needlessly. And I don't like to see people get hurt at all. And especially if it's needless, if it's absolutely senseless, and absolutely nothing accomplished by it. Sometimes when we're moving in the right direction, there may be a little hurt, shall we call it, in the discharge of our responsibility. I don't particularly find it pleasant to take the steps to bring to point these things so that they may be seen and recognized and known. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no condemnation at all toward those who have assumed and maintained leadership on this basis over a considerable period of time. Now, when the ones involved find out it is they may decide, as they have tended to decide in the past, that I just don't understand. And to feel that I'm, for some peculiar reason, not being quite fair to them, requiring them to go through some special turmoil for somebody else, somewhere else, somehow. And it'll be just plain nonsense. No one needs to get hurt, really. if we begin to let God have control. And the will of God works through the current of cause from God and is well able to produce in your life, my life, or anyone's life, that which should be accomplished without the human mind interfering and wanting to know this and wanting to know that, trying to figure it all out. On this basis, because human beings are identified over here and not in relationship to basic cause, they never know themselves as they are. They always imagine themselves to be something that they're not. And they go through the period of their existence, their days on earth, suffering from fond delusion. And generally speaking, they feel that they're somehow a bit abused or put upon. I wonder, if you had had my place tonight, would you have said this? Or would you have said, we'll wait another year? If you remember, over a period of years, each year, especially at the beginning of the year, I said, let this be the year when we come to the point of being together with one accord in one place, and we let the current of cause so be made manifest that there shall be power to meet the situations of life, to accomplish what needs to be done. But no, we are still divided. We have not yet reached the point of being with one accord in one place, because the leadership here is very strong and vigorous. Quite a number tend to follow it, and the division is maintained. Oh, you gather together here to hear me 4 times a week, and I talk to you, and what I say is translated to give support to the leadership that is opposing the very thing to which I'm dedicated, the very thing to which I'm inviting you. Now, while there is that division, that separation, we cannot stand and accomplish that which we're called. We need to face up to the issues, and those who have been guilty of this need not condemn themselves unduly. I do trust that sooner or later they will repent and realize that this is the realm of the house of feeding the swine. It's no good over here. Let us go home to the Father's house. But when a person is under the fond delusion that he is at home in the Father's house, and when in fact he's over here feeding the swine and living on the husk, that is when it is sad. That is when it is difficult. If the individual knows that he's over here and is willing to arise and go home to the Father, then it is a comparatively easy process. But if he suffers from the conviction that he is in the Father's house over here, then there has to be worked out some kind of a pattern of shock, of disillusionment, so that he can wake up and begin to realize where he has been and what he has been doing, get over the period of amnesia, and go home to the Father's house. We are moving forward sufficiently so that these things are beginning to be critical. It isn't something that I can willfully ignore. And so, there's no choice as far as I'm concerned. If I'm to discharge my responsibilities and be true to the trust that you have in me, I have no choice but to point it out. And those who are involved to varying degrees and in various ways will either have to respond and come home, or get rebellious and upset and feel abused and go their way. Now, I hope no one goes out. I'm not trying to kick anyone out. I am pointing to the fact that we're coming to the time when we cannot maintain this divided pattern any longer. And especially the leaders are either going to have to realize what they're doing and repent and come home, or something will happen that they will depart from sunlight rest. I have no choice in the matter. It is your choice, individually and collectively. So, when we learn to respond to that which comes down from God out of heaven through the current of cause into the earth, and when we let the will of cause be done in earth as it is in heaven, realizing that God or cause is the rightful owner, shall we say? Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. And he's offering to share it with us right here on earth, because he put man on earth to do something on earth, and while man follows after his patterns of self-activity, he is not doing on earth that for which God put him on earth. Every man, woman, and child born on the face of the earth comes under that, in this generation as much as any other. And each must make the choice for himself. We're either going to do what God put us here to do, or failing that, we'll try to do what we think we want to do, and fail. The Master said, follow me. And he carried through to victory.